Welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games and part 2 of our fantasy map series. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll be taking you through how to draw trees for your town. I'll show you 40 different styles that you can draw and then do a little map so you can see one of the styles in practice. Let's celebrate this new series and break out a new journal. This is the A5 dotted journal from Stationery Island, and I've put links in the description down below to everything that I'll be using in the video. I'll also link to part 1 of the series where I go through all the pens, paper, pencils and tools I use in more detail. Okay, let's get started. So I've made loads of circles here just to give me a little guide ready for inking, and I used number 20 on the stencil guide, and then the pen I'll be using for this part is the Unipin 08. This is going to make the trees a little bit bigger than I would be using in a normal map, but it should stand out a little bit more for you so you get a better look at the different styles. So here we're going to go through 40 different styles, starting with this one. And here I'm just making a squiggly line all the way around that circle, one solid line, and then I'm doing little squiggles inside, getting smaller as I reach the centre of the tree. And what I tend to do on one side of the tree when I do the lines inside the outline is I'll make them a little bit longer to the left hand side, because I imagine that there's light coming from the right, and so you see once we shade it in, those lines are going to give the effect of a shadow on one side. As the scale here is for a town map, we don't want too much detail on these trees. You could also use this for a small village as well if you wanted to. It's going to certainly work in that scale too. And the effect we're trying to get here is just the suggestion of a tree. So any squiggles, curls, little wavy lines, that's all going to work. But the style you choose is going to give you the overall style of your map. And so it's important to pick one style and then just stick with that all the way through your map. As we go through some different styles here, you'll notice that I get a little bit freer with a pen later on. Some of these lines, like this one here, we're doing the same curves all the way around. We can be a little bit quicker because we're not joining them up, and it gives a totally different effect to your map. There's so many different ways you can do this. Typically, the more curvy and precise you get, the more cartoony it will look. But the more freer you get and the more almost scruffy the lines are, that might give you a more like whimsical look, a bit more natural as well. I like to find a happy medium for my map, so I don't want it to be too scruffy. I want some definition with the line, but I want it to be very loose and free. So I'll show you the one that I use later on when I include it in the little map as an example as well. And also when we do this for real on our maps, we want to be using a smaller pen. This is the 0.8 that I'm using just so I can draw them a bit bigger in the book here so you can really see the different styles. But what I'll do when I draw a map is I'll have two thicknesses of pens. Normally I'll use the micron pens and use a 0.2 for the outline and then a 0.05 for the details in the centre of the tree. And that's just going to give the idea that it's a lot bushier, a bit darker at the bottom. As you get to the top, there's more light hitting it, and the leaves are sticking out a little bit more on the branches, so a little bit more defined. Now we're up to style number 9, and you can see the difference between those two that I've just done. The one I just did, number 9, is a bit like a rose when you look at it from the top, where the other one is just completely crazy, all squiggly. And I think I'd go for that squiggly one if I was getting a bit more detail. Maybe when I do the dwelling maps, where I'm zoomed in a bit more on a particular building or a little farm, I'd want a bit more detail on the tree. So that's where that squiggly one would work really well. But for the town map, where we're zoomed out quite a lot, and you can see loads of houses and lots of trees, rivers, roads, and all the different land effects and the different features of the land, you don't want it too detailed. So maybe that number 9 and 10 would work a lot better for your style with just those nice smooth curves. On this one here, I've gone for, you can see one big curve and then some little squiggles after it, and I've done that 4 big curves, 4 little squiggles, so you can be quite uniform as well if you want to. And then here, this is just like a big fluffy cloud that you would draw in school. This is a nice look, but here is a different way that you could create that idea of shade or movement. Maybe if you want to portray something's a little bit windy, these lines are going to add some movement to your trees, but also shading as well. Let's try another one with that outline, this time overlapping a little bit, very slightly, and we'll just go in with those curves, and I'm just going opposite the gaps. So where I've done one big one joined up, I'll do two little squiggles inside and then oppose the next squiggles so that they are opposite the gaps, and then that just creates an effect and gives you the kind of idea that it's getting a little bit taller, so you're creating that height and volume of the tree. The way I do the fantasy maps, I'm not trying to get anything photorealistic or anything like that. It's almost just a representation of what's on the ground. So it's not an overhead photo or anything like that. And I try to imagine it as if I've gone into a tavern, I'm talking to someone and they're explaining a village and the layout of it to me, and then maybe they draw it on a little bit of parchment with just a quill or whatever. So you want it to look a bit quirky, really fun, and you definitely want it to look hand-drawn, I think. For my Population Z game, I went with everything a bit more precise, certainly with the buildings and with the vehicles, very crisp, and I did it all digitally, and that just made sense because it's set in the modern day, where buildings and vehicles are very precise and perfect. But as this is going to be set in a fantasy world for my new game, Lunaria Chronicles, we want things to be a little bit more maybe off, not so perfect, and so when we do the buildings in one of the next videos, you'll see that they won't be as precise as the ones that I did in Population Z. And then overall on the map, that has a really nice effect, and it's definitely going to make it stand out, and you'll see the difference between the two games for sure. The way this series is going to work is each video, building up for maybe the next 10 videos, will be taking one element of the town map, and then I'll be going through lots of different variations and styles to give you a nice reference and a guide, so you can have a look at it and then choose the one you like, come up with your own ideas too, and then start putting them together to create a map. And by the time we've gone through all the different features and icons, we'll have everything we need to start putting together a complete map, and then I'll document the whole process in a video. I'll also make a video where I show you what I do going from the pencil then to the ink, and then I'll take that ink drawing and I'll scan it into the computer, and then I'll use Procreate and Photoshop to then add some shade and some colour. The effect we'll get is a nice hand-drawn outline of the map, but then some real proper nice colour that we can use ready for printing. So that's going to be perfect when we set our settings up for printing the book that comes with this series, because that's going to come out. So if that's something you're interested in, there'll be a paperback or PDF near the end of the series that you'll be able to purchase too. And if you're watching this in the future, that's already going to be available. And if it is, there's going to be a link down below. And the reason I'm doing all these maps is because I've got my new game Lunaria Chronicles coming out in June 2024. So I'm preparing the maps, I'm drawing the town maps, the village, the dwellings, the encounter maps, and a kingdom and world map as well. So all those maps are going to be in the book. So you're going to actually see the process unfolding as we work through the series. And if you want to follow along, head over to my website, join the mailing list, and then you'll be kept up to date. You'll also get some great discounts and special offers when all the books and everything come out. So definitely a good idea to join that. Right, now we're on to 28 different designs so far. We're nearly there. I really like this one actually. This one came out quite cool. I did some little wiggles, then just a couple of lines in between. It looks a bit like a flower, but if you imagine it when we do it top down on a map for the town scale, it might look like little branches popping out, giving that kind of suggestion. But there's so many different ways you can do this. It's amazing really how many different ideas we can come up with just to draw a top-down tree, and then it's just picking your favourite that matches your style. And then once we work through all the different videos of the series, you'll see how to do buildings in different ways, the walkways, paths, roads, and the rivers, and then you can start picking out trees that match the style of road you like, or the style of riverbank and things like that. It's a really fun process. I love doing maps. I've always liked drawing maps for different things, so it's great to finally be doing it here on the channel and actually getting something in print as well. Really looking forward to this book coming out, and there's going to be a lot of map videos coming out as we go over the next few months and beyond that. I'm going to keep doing it because it is really a big part of the hobby that I've not shared much before in the past. I'd love to know what you think about this series as well. Do you like drawing maps? Is there anything that you think would be helpful? Let me know in the comments and I can add it to the list and create something for that. I'll be doing little shorts as well, so even if it's just a few questions you got, maybe I can answer them in a short video and do a quick little sketch or something. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback and suggestions too in the comments down below. I've just flipped the book now, it makes it a lot easier, and actually that one I just did is one of my favourites, and that's probably the style I'll be using in the little mini map that we'll get to in a little while. This one's quite similar, but I've put a little bit more detail, just a touch more in there. It's very subtle, the difference you can go from one to the next, but I really like the loose freehand squiggly style that leaves little gaps here and there and has just broken up that outline a little bit, because I think for the scale of a town that's going to work really nicely. And when we add some shade in there as well, that's all going to certainly give it a bit more of the effect that it's darker on one side, lighter on the other as the light hits the trees. Here's one that's got a bit more angular sections to it, maybe a sci-fi tree, something like that. Or this could just be the whole style you go for with your map, more of a like doodly style. That would be quite cool. It's fun to try out different styles, and I think when you set yourself a number like this, 40 different trees to come up with, you're going to come up with ideas you never would have thought of, and certainly you wouldn't have done in the first 10. So you really push yourself to get more done. I've actually done 50 before on another page, but here I thought 40 would look good on the paper, a nice size that stands out. And here with this one, this has got 3 sections to the tree, so you could start thinking of, rather than having just like a circle with the squiggles around, imagine it more of a bushy tree, so that could work for sure. And then I seem to have gone back to a more precise controlled little wiggles here on this one, but I do prefer the wavy one for sure for the town map. And then for a city map, I'd probably go even wavier with less details on it because you're further away. But as we get into the little farms and dwellings that I'm really looking forward to covering later on, that's when these little precise curves are going to come into their own. And I think they'll be really effective to make some nice quirky little settlement drawings. Now we're getting to the end, we're on to the last one, and so I've almost gone with the same tree here for the last 4, but just done it a little bit lighter, a little bit looser for each one. I'm almost just scratching the paper here and hardly touching it at all with the ink to create a very different effect. And there we go, that's 40 different tree styles that you could use in your top-down map for a town scale, or maybe even for a village. And this one really stands out to me, definitely be good for a village, but I think for the little map I'll do later on, I'll be using that one down the bottom there. I think that's going to be perfect for the effect I want to go with. It goes to show it's worth persevering through a good number of these, because that was number 39, so I was really happy with that by the time I got there. I quite like that. These two, but all very different, and by the time you've got lots of them on the page, it really is going to give you a nice style, and you start to build up your style the more maps that you draw. Now let's move on then. We'll take that one example and then I'll create this little map just to show you what it looks like using the correct size pens as well. So you can see here I've just made in pencil all the circles for the trees. I've already gone over the ink for the river, the roads and the buildings. And I've done a style that I think will match the trees. And in the videos to come, we will be going through lots of different building styles too. But let's get back to this. So I'm going to take a Micron 02 pen for the outline of the tree. And then the details are going to be with a Micron 005. Again, links are down below if you want to find out the exact ones that I'm using. So here we go then. I've got the camera zoomed in now so we can start having a look. And I'm just going to go with a nice loose style based on that one that I did earlier. And so I'm just going to go around doing the bigger trees first. So these are going to be the taller trees that are going to overlap all the ones underneath them. So start with the big one and then work your way down through the size. Sometimes I would have them going over the roads, over the river bank a little bit as well. That's nice to break up those big lines. But in this case, I haven't done that. But when we do the big map towards the end of the series, you'll see things like that. And we'll be talking about how to do layouts and things like that as well in a separate video. So I'm just going to continue this. I'll do all the outlines and then come back and do the inner details. So let me grab another pen. I'll grab that 005 and then start doing the details inside so you can see the full process. There we go, I've got that 005 and you can see the difference now it makes with that slightly thicker outline to the thinner lines in the centre with the detail. And I'm being a lot heavier with my squiggles on the left hand side and then just spacing them out a bit more as I get to the top right. And that's going to give the idea that it's darker on the left, lighter on the right as the sun's coming from the east as you would look from the map. And I'll typically go through all the outlines first and then grab the smaller pen and then do all the details. And here we go, this is the end result. I've rubbed out all the pencil with the Faber-Castell dust-free rubber, and that's really important. I think that's a good one to get hold of. You can get 6 quite cheap together in a bundle. And then if you wanted to at this stage, you could go ahead and use some light greys and shade it in by hand if you don't want to import it into Procreate or Photoshop to do the shading that way. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you draw maps already? Is this something you want to get into? I'd love to hear any tips you've got too. That would be awesome. But hopefully these 40 different styles are going to give you a great place to get started, and now you can create a little mini map of your own. But we've still got loads to come. Go and check out part 1 if you haven't seen that already, and if you want to find out all the tools that I'm using, and then look out for all the other parts in the series to come where we'll be looking at buildings, roads, rivers and everything else to feature on our town map. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, it'd be great if you hit the like button, subscribe to keep up to date with all the videos, and I look forward to seeing you here next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'd like to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for helping me keep going with these regular videos, and I'd love to do more videos like these, so if that's something you want to see, it'd be great to get your support too. There's a link down below, it'll take you over to the Patreon page. You can have a look at the perks and see all the different expansions, quests and missions that you'll be getting for free as a member for all the different games. So if you're interested in finding out more and supporting the channel, that link's down below. It'd be awesome to see you on our Patreon page.